question for you. Have you ever wondered where certain words come from? Words like kerfuffle or rural or noonshine. Noonshine, yeah. Okay, those aren't words we use every day, but there is a story and a person behind every single word. Sarah Ogilvy's new book, The Dictionary People, is about the unsung heroes who created the Oxford English Dictionary. Now, I am a self-professed word nerd, so I was so giddy talking to Sarah. Many of us just thought the OED, or the Oxford English Dictionary, kind of has always existed, but that's not the case, right?
It's not the case. I know, like often we think of the dictionary like the Bible, something that's just always been there. But in fact, the OED, the Oxford English Dictionary, was first thought up in the mid-19th century, so in 1858. And then they thought it would take 2 years to make. Then they thought 10 years. It actually took 70 years. So it was finally finished in 1928.
Wow, it is amazing. And the size of it and the amount of things it covers. Can I just ask you, for someone who love reading and or maybe English majors like myself, love language and words, but not everyone understands the difference between, let's say, a Merriam-Webster dictionary and the OED. Can you explain the difference?
Absolutely. So the Oxford English Dictionary is your big 20-volume work. And why it's different from every other dictionary in the English language, it's the largest dictionary in the English language. And unlike the others, it's actually an historical dictionary. So what that means is it gives you the history of every word. And after the head word and then the definition, then it gives you this quotation paragraph that shows you the very first time that that word was used in a written source. And then it gives you lots of other quotations showing you how that word was used throughout its life until the current day.
So amazing. I get so excited to talk about this because it is really amazing. And we're talking contributors to the OED. They're not just professors and people. I mean, everyday people were contributors, right?
They were. So when they first came up with the idea of creating a dictionary with every word in the English language in it, they realized that a small group of men in London or in Oxford just couldn't do that alone. Mm-hmm. So they put out this appeal to people all throughout the world and said, could you please read your local books, write out quotations from those books and write them out on little slips of 4 by 6 inch paper and send them to us here in Oxford. And they had no idea whether anyone would actually do it. So this was one of the first crowdsourced projects. And in fact, it was so successful. So many people sent in slips to James Murray, who was the chief editor, the longest serving editor here in Oxford. They sent in so many slips that Royal Mail put a red pillar box outside his house, and it's still there today.
Oh, that's wonderful. Aside from the common person who was contributing, there were famous people like Jane Austen, who contributed words like, I think you said it was doorbell and outsiders.
She was the first person to use a lot of words like sponge cake. She also used another word called noonshine, which they put into the dictionary, even though it only had one quotation from Jane Austen. And that was her private word for an afternoon snack, a noonshine.
A moonshine?
Noon.
A noonshine. Okay. Oh, that is fascinating. It's like second breakfast. So we have Jane Austen, we have famous people, we have commoners, and then you have prisoners. Prisoner actually contributed a lot of words, correct?
That's right. So we didn't know who all these people were until 8 years ago. I was down in the basement of Oxford University Press, where the archive is stored. And it's one of my favorite places in the world because it's where all of those slips are stored. So there are 4 million slips down there and all these boxes. And I took the lid off this dusty box, and inside was this little black book tied with cream ribbon. And I undid it, opened it up, and I immediately recognized the immaculate handwriting of that longest serving editor, James Murray. And this book ended up being his 150-year-old address book. And then I found 5 other address books. So with these 6 address books that told us who all those people were, we now know that there were 3,000 people around the world. There were far more Americans than we thought, a lot more women, people from Australia and New Zealand and South Africa, but also outside of the British Empire, people in Japan and South America. So this truly was a global project and definitely the Wikipedia of the 19th century.
Unreal. I have to ask you, you mentioned something about Americans contributing. I don't think people often realize that. When you think of Oxford and the English dictionary, you think of England.
Exactly. And we think of it as this quintessentially British text. But in fact, if you look in the pages of the first edition of the Oxford English Dictionary, you see that there are not just hundreds, but thousands of Americanisms, because all these Americans were sending their words to Oxford on these little slips of paper, and James Murray put them into the dictionary, and he was criticized for it at the time, not only in reviews of the dictionary. They said, what are these outlandish words doing in an English dictionary? But also from his bosses within Oxford University Press, they were saying, you really shouldn't be putting in so many Americanisms. But he kept on doing it, and I'm so pleased that he did, because the dictionary is truly this global text.
And it's so fascinating, right? There were some words I couldn't share, maybe a little too sassy, but so many fun things in this book. Got to go check it out. And I love that the Oxford Dictionary, or OED for word nerds like me, is truly a dictionary of the people. All right, so if you have a word you'd like to submit, did you know that you can still do that? It is digital now, and we've got the contact information on our website. Let us know if you think there's a word that we have not heard.